Well, thanks to some incredible reporting from the Seattle Times, we now have access to the breakup text messages of the Pac-12 and a little bit more insight into how things went down when the conference all imploded. Welcome in. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football, conference realignment, college hoops, all from a Big 12 angle. Please consider subscribing if you have not. Live shows Wednesdays and Sundays. Not today because of the New Year's holiday, but typically on Wednesday and Sunday, you are going to get a live show. They are very lively, hundreds of people in here, and it is a great, great time. So please do consider subscribing, click that bell, like the video, leave a comment underneath the video. All of that stuff helps. And if you are so inclined, you can support the channel on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4. So the first bit of reporting I want to get to is just a funny anecdote that's included here about Kirk Schultz and how he was trying to lay on a guilt trip with a little bit of humor. When he saw a breakup letter from Washington, in essence, in the final hours of this, he said, quote, "Remaining institutions are fighting for our athletic lives right now. Our financial modeling of a 40% budget reduction in athletics is tough and will certainly be career-ending for much of our current leadership. If I deliver a pizza to your door on my next job, please give me a nice tip." It's laying on the guilt trip pretty thick there from Kirk Schultz. But honestly, tough to blame him very much. There are also great little bits of info like this from George Kliavkoff back in July of 2022, okay? So almost an entire year before the Pac-12 did implode. Quote, "We are open to discussing a strategic relationship with the Big 12 that could help both conferences, and we have no preconceived notions about what would be possible or not. We are also talking to the ACC, and the ACC commissioner knows that we are talking to the Big 12. So at that point, and remember, there was some reporting around this and some dispute around the reporting there that there were discussions of a merger between the two conferences and what could happen and what could be possible. And George Kliavkoff did not seem to like when it was written that the Big 12 basically said, thanks, but no thanks. Here is another quite hilarious one from George Kliavkoff. Remember how often we talked about during this saga that he was very much overestimating the value of the Pac-12, thought that it was close to the Big Ten, which was an asinine statement. We've got some further proof that he definitely thought it should be close to the Big Ten. Quote, "The expected valuation being reported for the Big Ten is positive news for the Pac-12 and the value of our own rights," Kliavkoff wrote to university presidents the day the Big Ten deal was announced. Now let's fast forward to Media Day when the Pac-12 was on the brink. They were about to leave. They were about to lose Colorado. It was about to implode. Kliavkoff wrote to the university presidents and athletic directors, quote, "It is essential that we are aligned and speak positively and confidently with one voice on Football Media Day." Football Media Day wound up being a disaster because George Kliavkoff got his feet held to the fire in a press conference and looked a little bit silly. And then, of course, you also had this. After that message being sent by Kliavkoff, Colorado Athletic Director Rick George chose not to speak at all, and when approached by reporters, he bellowed, quote, "I've got a flight to catch," before disappearing down a hallway. And then just before 8 a.m. on July 27th, Kliavkoff texted the president at Washington, forwarding a message from Colorado Chancellor Philip DeStefano. Quote, "George, our board will vote this afternoon at 3 o'clock to join the Big 12 Conference. It was not an easy decision, and I realize its impact on the other members. If there is a time you are available today, I am happy to call you, Phil." Washington's president immediately responded with, "Ugh," and then said, "I find post-breakup I'm sorry calls worse than the breakup." Kliavkoff says he broke up by text, didn't even call. And the Washington president says, "The kids have a term for that, but I'm too old to remember." Very funny to see a text interaction here between the two sides here and what this actually looks like. I mean, you are seeing, in essence, breakup texts happening in real time. And that is what is crazy about this reporting, getting us that sort of insight. I'm not sure what I would have guessed as far as what kind of a texter George Kliavkoff actually was, but this gives you a little bit of insight into that. And it is funny that in today's day and age, with everything going on and how quick all of this was moving, that a lot of it is happening through text, right? People are having to notify others through text. Some of it phone calls, some of it emails, sure. But you're going to have to, in today's day and age, do a little bit of this by text. I don't even know that it's that poor of form in some ways because of how quickly decisions had to be made here. This is another fairly amusing one. Kliavkoff would present Apple's proposal to the university presidents August 1st. The day before, Washington's president texted him, "Sending good vibes your way." And Kliavkoff said, "Thank you. Wish there was anything I could do to influence that outcome." And the Washington president, of course, in a position where she has to know she has options, says, quote, "In my native country, we light a candle. Can't hurt." I mean, I get that you're trying to help. I get that you're trying to be nice. But that's, hey, George, I know everything's about to crumble before your eyes, but maybe light a candle. See if that'll help Apple out and make that deal more enticing. The next morning when Kliavkoff presents the offer, this is really good insight into Washington. When Kliavkoff finally presents this offer that we have been told by the John Canzanos of the world for a long time was a great offer, nothing to worry about, it's going to be awesome, slam dunk, it'll kill the Big 12's deal. This is how Washington felt about it afterwards. This is a text exchange between the athletic director at the time and the university president. So athletic director says, this isn't going to work. President says, it's not what we wanted for sure. Athletic director says, he went backwards on benefits of this since Friday. President says, we need to weigh against other options, but yes, not what we wanted. Athletic director, it's not close. This is bad. And of course, that was the deal that put the Apple offer at around $23 million per school with more money tied to subscription incentives. And then you got to love this. Utah. Well, what did we think about Utah the whole time? They were going to be stubborn. They wouldn't go until they absolutely had to. And this would echo that because the Washington president texts Utah president Taylor Randall and says, I'm not happy. And Randall says, tough to analyze, but does have upside. So Utah is really trying to fight this and hold out. They do not want to go. Washington president says, agreed, my fear is short term. Then we get some timeline on what happens August 3rd, which is when things really went to hell for the Pac-12. There was an email sent by the Pac-12 vice president with financial modeling of the deal and a comparison to the Big 12's deal. And in this case, they were smart. All documents are sent as links on private Pac-12 sites, not as attachments, which would shield them from these open records requests. So we don't get to actually see those, which would have been really, really entertaining. Stanford's president asked Washington's president to call him. But here is where Washington's president has dual imperatives to try to keep the Pac-12 together, but find the best deal for Washington, and they all become clear. She spends the day simultaneously reassuring her Pac-12 colleagues, fielding pitches from Apple, coordinating with Oregon, and reaching out to the Big Ten. So Washington was, in essence, by that point, having to play both sides in discussions with the Big Ten. At 7 a.m., she texts Oregon President John Carl Schultz to say they should talk. She then texts president at the University of Michigan at 7:12 a.m., and the university president responds, it's important for them to talk. So all of this discussion is going on early in the day. On the 3rd and the 4th is when it would all totally fall apart. So Kliavkoff is also desperately trying to reach people at 2:51 p.m. Kliavkoff emails all the presidents saying he wants to share some news. The Apple guy wants to share some news. Washington president responds to the group, all ears. Shortly before 5 p.m., Washington president tries to call the Big Ten chair and says she'll call back in an hour when he says he is busy. So again, in the midst of all of this, playing one side with the Pac-12 and still communicating with the Big Ten. Apple guy forwards at 10 o'clock p.m. all the Pac-12 presidents an announcement highlighting that Apple now has 1 billion paid subscribers around the world. Very exciting. Very exciting. I'm sure everybody around the world was chomping at the bit to get on that Pac-12 deal and watch Pac-12 football. This is also another funny one in retrospect where the narrative coming out of Pac-12 country was, hey, everyone was set to sign, ready to go as we went to bed, and then the messaging behind the scenes makes it seem like Oregon and Washington were pretty much ready to go. At 2:10 a.m., or 2:23 rather a.m., the Pac-12 vice president emails the college presidents the agreement with Apple for each school to sign. But as dawn breaks, it's all done. At 7 a.m., Washington's president tries to call Kirk Schultz. 20 minutes later, she tells Utah's Randall she can talk if she'd like. She misses a call from the president at Stanford and tries to call him back. And at 8:35 a.m., she texts Washington State Schultz. Says, I'm here to talk if you'd like. Schultz says, thanks, give me a couple of days. We are fighting to remain a Power 5 school right now. Apple deal is off. So basically what happened here is that there was an agreement sent out in the wee hours of the morning by the Pac-12 to try to get everybody to sign. But as we could see, dating back hours the previous day, Washington was on the phone working the Big Ten and talking to the Michigan president and another guy in leadership at the Big Ten, like obviously working that angle and getting in there. I don't think there was ever any intention of them to sign that, but you probably had the Kirk Schultzes of the world behind the scenes saying, hey, at 2 a.m., we got this agreement sent out there. It's there for people to sign as we wake up. And then, of course, Oregon and Washington were like, yeah, no, we're not signing this. And we saw the text exchange between Washington's president and AD and how they were treating it and feeling about it. It was pretty obvious how all of this happened. You got a very Pac-12-centric, Pac-12-friendly reporting spin on this when it was going down. And thanks to the Seattle Times, we have a pretty good idea of how things really really went down with all of this. So, and I do love this one little bit to finish up. It says the news goes public. The Seattle Times story posts at 9:45 a.m. Washington and Oregon to join Big Ten Conference in 2024. The Washington president misses a call from Kliavkov, and then at 10:29, a text exchange practically dripping with subtext, sadness, and betrayal. Kliavkov says, "Please call me. Thanks." Washington president says, "May take a while, but we'll be in contact." Kliavkov says, "Okay, thanks. Are you joining the board call?" Washington president says, "I'm sorry, George. I won't be attending this meeting. We'll be following up soon." Poor George. The final letdown text there for George Kliavkov. Now, I say poor George. He's going to make millions of dollars from the Pac-12 here. It's been talk of upwards of $8 million that they'll have to pay to get rid of him. That sucks for Washington State and Oregon State and everybody involved there. But, man, crazy to see behind the scenes how all of this unfolded, how all of it went down. And now, all these months later, we have a little bit more closure thanks to the Seattle Times. If you enjoyed this content, you're into conference realignment, college football, college hoops, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. I would much appreciate that. Leave a comment under the video. What do you think about all this? What is your reaction? And do you agree with the assertions here of the timeline, and how did that sync up? Let me know about it in the comments. You can support the channel on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4. Appreciate all of you guys for being here. Take care. Have a great new year, and I will talk to you soon.